But I want to start with a story that I believe goes to the heart of incentives and how when you make bad incentives, you create bad outcomes. And you've heard Buck and me both talk about the issue at the United States southern border. And the reason why so many people are crossing the southern border ultimately boils down to two incentives that exist that, so long as they exist, are going to continue to drive people to leave their countries and try to come here. One, you can make 20, 30, 40 times as much money if you leave the country that you are in right now and make it to the United States. There are a lot of you listening to me right now that like your jobs. If you could make 25% more money doing a similar job, many of you would say, yeah, I'm leaving. An extra $10,000 a year would make a tremendous difference for you and your family. You would go to a new job. The reason you would go is the incentive of more money. Almost every single person listening to me right now, if I told you that you could make 20 times as much money as you make now, if you would go to Canada, almost all of you would go. I think there are very few of you that would say, you know what? I'm so happy where I am right now in my job that I will turn down 20 times as much money to go to Canada and do a similar potential job. So jobs is one incentive. The other, as we have talked about, is birthright citizenship. If you lived in a country without basic human rights and you wanted to have a family and you knew that if you had a son or daughter in the United States, that son or daughter would immediately become an American, you would be very incentivized also to try to come to the United States. Both of those incentives create the 7 million plus illegals that have then continued across our southern border, and certainly failure to stop anyone from coming into the country, removing barriers, not building walls, all of that provides even more of an incentive for people to come because the risk of not getting in is comparatively low. Okay, we know that goes on at the border. I want to talk about this other story that I have been discussing that I bet a lot of you have not paid much attention to. There's a head football coach, was a head football coach at Michigan State University. It's a guy by the name of Mel Tucker. And I think his story is emblematic of the incentive structure that was created in the wake of the Brett Kavanaugh hearings and the Me Too movement. And it is the hashtag #BelieveAllWomen. I didn't really hear much about that hashtag until Brett Kavanaugh was framed as he attempted to rise to become a Supreme Court justice. All of the allegations, and I say this as a lawyer who has done criminal law, I dove into, I analyzed, I know Buck felt the same way. They were all complete and total crap. And they were a political hit job on Brett Kavanaugh. And you can say even that was a natural outgrowth of the political hit job that was put in place that they went after Clarence Thomas on. But it really went to the next level because I don't remember during the Anita Hill hearings anybody trying to argue hashtag #BelieveAllWomen. In fact, Joe Biden, who was then the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, to my best recollection, actually gave a somewhat supportive, as Democrats go, version of that hearing for Clarence Thomas. That was in a different time now. Joe Biden, of course, would say that Clarence Thomas was guilty the moment he was accused, despite the fact that Joe Biden himself is credibly accused of sexual assault to a far greater degree than almost anyone in the world of politics, and certainly anyone who's sitting on the Supreme Court today. Yes, I'm talking about Tara Reade. But what happened when you say believe all women? The argument is, well, there's lots of women out there who are sexually assaulted and they don't come forward. And certainly, I believe if you've been a victim of violent crime, you should always come forward. But when you say believe all women, you are by default saying don't believe men. And you are therefore telling larger segments of the American public, many of whom are honest, but also many of whom are dishonest, that if you tell a story, the media is going to be predisposed to believe you and disbelieve the other person solely based on your gender. And that's, I believe, what's happened at Michigan State University. Yesterday, you might have heard me mention this on this show, but let me give you a rough synopsis of what happened. Michigan State then head football coach Mel Tucker, who has a massive $9.5 million contract, got a $95 million, I believe it was, 10-year contract to coach football at Michigan State University. One of the elite Big Ten football institutions in the country. Football is a big deal there. If you're not a football fan, understand that. So Mel Tucker hires a woman named Brenda Tracy to come talk to his football team about the importance of not committing sexual assault and not putting yourself in positions where you could be accused of committing sexual assault. Basically, he teaches his team, wants to teach his team, how young men should conduct themselves to make sure that they are avoiding of trouble with women while they are members of the Michigan State football team. This woman, Brenda Tracy, comes and speaks, I believe, once spring game at Michigan State. Then they develop a relationship. Mel Tucker, by his own descriptions, is married, but is basically staying with his wife until the kids are old enough to graduate from high school. That's public. That's out there. I don't like to dive into anybody's own marriage, but it's known that he and his wife are basically partners in raising their kids until they become graduate from high school, and then they're going to go in their own way. My understanding is they sleep in different bedrooms, they have limited interaction, but they want to raise their kids to go to adulthood, and then potentially they're going to go in different directions. Again, I don't like to get into marriages, but everybody wants to dive into this marriage because of the situation that has ensued. Both he and Brenda Tracy seem to be interested in each other. They had, according to established record, 27 phone calls that lasted more than 30 minutes. 27 of them. I don't know how many of you out there have engaged in 27 phone calls of over 30 minutes with anyone in the country. I would submit that that's fairly rare. The younger you are, the less likely it is, I actually think. I have not had 27 30-minute plus phone calls with anyone in the last year. Certainly not my wife. Certainly not my mom. Not even the people who are closest to me. I communicate primarily by text and short phone calls. They were interested in each other. One particular phone call lasted 36 minutes. Brenda Tracy came out and said, after that let me tell you what happened on that 36-minute phone call. Both parties acknowledge that phone sex occurred. 36-minute phone call, phone sex occurs. After that phone call, at some point in time, Mel Tucker decided, you know what? This relationship has gone too far. It's gotten too personal. I'm going to cut this relationship off. And he decided not to have this woman come talk to his team again. He canceled the speaking engagement. When that happened, Brenda Tracy decided that the phone sex, months after it happened, had actually been non-consensual. This 36-minute phone call that happened, she said she froze and she couldn't hang up, and she turned Mel Tucker in to Michigan State University, and Michigan State University fired him, and they said, we're not going to pay you the $80 million remaining on your contract. Now, I said, you might have heard me talk about it on this show because I thought it was so emblematic. I said, this story on its face doesn't make sense. You can't have a 36-minute phone call, claim that you froze and couldn't hang up, and then retroactively, months later, say you didn't consent to phone sex and demand that the head football coach get fired. What really happened, I think, is I told you all this, I think she wanted a serious relationship with him. He decided to cut it off. She went fatal attraction, turned him in, and tried to make him pay. Michigan State fired him. So here are the text messages that I want to read to you. And this was put out in the hearing yesterday. She tried to delete all of her text messages, Brenda Tracy did. Her assistant died in a car accident, and she tried to rush at the hospital. She was asking whether she could get access to her assistant's text messages, and the family thought it was super weird, and now we know why. She lobbied for, she said, first of all, she talked all about how much money Mel Tucker had. Talked about how he got a $95 million contract, how that's $700,000 a month. Can you imagine what it would be like to have that kind of wealth? She then texted, I'm filing a formal complaint with Michigan State. My lawyer said after that we can let him know we want to come to an agreement that it doesn't have to go to a hearing or anything unless he wants it to. So she's looking for money literally in her own text message to her assistant. An assistant's text message, she claims she deleted all of her text message. The only reason we have access to this is because her assistant, who died, they weren't cleansed off of her devices, evidently. She told her assistant her attorney was reaching out to Michigan State regarding a settlement and that money is my only recourse to make him feel like there is a punishment. When they do the money, I should make him pay me $10,000 directly. She's been texting her assistant, Tucker signed his contract. I can't even wrap my brain around $95 million. Sheesh. Can you imagine around $700,000 going into your bank account every month? Every month. We're going to make it happen. I'm going to ask him to finance the doc. She was evidently making a movie. He'll do it. 1 week before she filed her complaint against Tucker demanding money, she admitted she was down to the final $5 in her checking account. After having filed the complaint, she texted, again, these are her text messages, imagine the victim is taking on a $95 million coach. She often referred to herself and the third person as the victim, as well as a good victim in many of her text messages. In connection, I'm reading from the Mel Tucker letter, in connection with realizing that, quote, she was supposed to be paying down 2018 taxes. She was owed money to the IRS, not caught up in other years. She said to her assistant, quote, having the IRS after me in a way that it's known publicly surely won't help my lawsuit. She admitted in writing that she engages in, quote, professional crying when I share my story. She claims to be a victim of sexual assault. That is her business. She goes and talks about her life as a sexual assault victim. She then said that she was in dire straits financially and said that her priority is a facelift and filming myself so we can make this money. These are, again, from a letter that Mel Tucker put forward to Michigan State. I'm reading some more details from the text messages. She also, again, according to this statement, as detailed in a witness's sworn statement, while this woman's friend lay dying in a hospital, this is her assistant, and even after her death, Miss Tracy sought to sleep over at this woman's house and repeatedly asked family for access to her assistant's phone and computers, according to a sworn statement. It really struck me odd that she would want her things and would be asking for them as her assistant lay dying in her hospital bed. After the doctor told us that the woman was not, her assistant was not going to make it, Brenda Tracy stated, according to this affidavit, I need to call my therapist because I don't feel supported right now. Can you imagine being in the hospital with someone dying? Your assistant is dying and you say in front of her family, I need to call my therapist because I don't feel supported right now. You know who probably doesn't feel very supported? The dead lady. This chick is crazy. And yet, her story was accepted as 100% truth. She said that she never engaged in personal relationships with anybody that she worked with. Because Mel Tucker's defense is we were engaged in a personal relationship. They've uncovered that she was sleeping with at least one other married head coach in college that she was working with. I'm not going to name him because I'm sure he's having a rough day right now. But this is wild. She also, in text messages, claims she was a victim because her name came out. Professional victim claims she's a professional victim. Her own text messages show that she was regularly texting reporters at USA Today and ESPN, tipping them off and asking them to write favorable stories about her being a victim of non-consensual phone sex. I mean, I can't believe this story is real. Again, these are her own text messages. I am reading from the filing of Mel Tucker's attorneys. Mel Tucker, the fired coach at Michigan State. What is going on here? How is this not a story that is everywhere? Sometimes I feel fortunate to run Outkick and to have this platform to be able to talk to all of you every single day, because very often, and I'm sure a lot of you feel like this too, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because I see stories and I'm like, how is this not the number one story in America? Mel Tucker got railroaded by what appears to be a lying woman who was seeking his money by her own words from her own text messages. How does this happen? It's the incentive structure we have created. And some of you might be saying, well, I don't care about Michigan State. I don't care about Mel Tucker. Do you care about Brett Kavanaugh? Do you care about Trevor Bauer? Do you care about, who knows, Russell Brand? Maybe. Now, I want to be clear. Sexual assault is real. Just because some women are lying doesn't mean all women are lying. But women should be furious about this. And sexual assault survivors should be the most angry. Because when a woman lies for money, as has happened this week with Trevor Bauer, former star pitcher of the Cincinnati Reds and the Dodgers, and Mel Tucker, just this week alone, 2 different sexual assault accusers have been proven to be 100% liars. If you believe that sexual assault is a serious problem, and I do, you should be furious at these women because they actually make it harder for true victims to come forward.